It's June the 2nd, about almost 11 o'clock. I'm out here at Dan Clawson's, and on the other side of this fence is Jake Fast. That's south. I'm going to pan around and go towards the east. I'm probably about a quarter of a mile north or south of the Beaver River, which is down in those trees. Looking back to the west now, I'm about in the center of a Indian village. These people used pit houses where they dug down into the ground 3 or 4 foot. If they had rock, they would make a little perimeter, set the rock in the ground, and then dig down on the inside of the rock circle or oval or whatever they chose. Then they would stick poles, tree limbs, whatever, and bend them over, tie them, and then thatch it, either mud, grass, whatever they could use. It was almost like a little African hut, except they were dugouts. Been out here probably about 25, 30 times. I found 3 or 4 scrapers, 4 or 5 arrowheads. I hadn't done too much digging on Fast side. There's still a lot of pit house or depressions that you can see that I suspect that a lot of people have come out here and dug. And on this side, I have found the remnants of an old screen that somebody came out here, so I know that they were digging. I'm a little further north than what I usually am. This is kind of the bad time of the year to be out here because everything's in bloom. We've had a couple of inches of rain in the last 2 weeks and it's really greened up. And the place I want to go and maybe dig is this away towards the southeast. There's 3 or 4 depressions or pit houses, and I found a small depression that I think might be a campfire or a storage pit or something. Anyway, I was going to dig it out. But the flowers are real pretty right now. Take the date off. And there's a well, gas well right up there. It's about a half mile from me. It should be about in the center of the section, which this fence splits this section. And then this fence that runs east and west is the south end or the north end of this section, which Clawson's on it, and on the other side over there. But this half a section is Jake Fast. And then the ground that I'm standing on is on Clawson's. Right now there's little clumps of yellow flowers. Sometimes you'll see a bunch of them all together. It's real pretty out here. Then you got these daisy looking things that are kind of yellow fringed with a reddish orange center. Small sunflower or daisy or something. Then up here, I just call them lavender looking flowers. Which every once in a while you'll run into a bunch of them. Thought I'd set the camera down and see if I can just get a picture of all the flowers. And I didn't know I had the camera on. There's a lot of gopher and mole activity out here. That's about the only thing you're going to find, unless you dig, is whatever the moles and gophers have dug up. I see something gray there. Which this thing is black and white right there. And I'm pretty sure that that is a piece of pottery. It's pottery shard. It's got a little pattern. That's the outside, and this is the inside. Of course, this is something where I'm standing right here, this bare spot, that was a little mole hole that the mole dug out. Of course, this was in his way, so he dug it out and cleaned out his tunnel. That's where you usually find stuff like that, especially during this time of the year. Which I found several pieces of pottery out here. The biggest piece probably about the size of a half a dollar. Of course, it's all scattered. I'm going to try to get some lavender flowers, but I don't see a group of them. I was in a group earlier. Areas like this is what I'm looking at to find stuff. Which I did bring a screen and shovel, so in a little while I'll start doing the hard part. There's a set of tire tracks. And here's some old bone shards. Can't really tell if that's ancient or if it's a recent, modern, something that's died, like a cow. The little tiny bone shards that you'll find that's usually clumped together on a bare spot like this, 9 times out of 10, or even better than that, they're ancient. The Indians would cook those larger bones or just throw them in the fire and heat them up and bust them open and eat the marrow. So what you usually find is just little, it's broken up bones, bone shards. And of course the moles come along, and if they're in their way when they're digging, they'd bring them back out to the surface and just leave them out there. Come up on a clump of the lavender colored flowers. There's a few odds and ends. Just over the west side of the fence, I'm on Jake Fast land. There's several dwelling or pit houses right over here, which I'm pretty sure most of these have been dug out. Here's a small depression, but you'll see some rocks. Get over here, these rocks have been moved around a lot. And this was a pretty large depression. That's depression. You can still see some embedded in the ground right in front of me. And it's kind of a circular. I don't know if this is a separate depression or kind of L-shaped. Just to the south of it is another one. Back over, this is a pretty large one here. As you see, there's rocks just scattered out. All these rocks came from the river. Just straight north of here, which there's kind of a cap rock where it's kind of a little cliff. This is the depression here, large rock. Which these are very similar to what they call the Antelope Creek people that was south of Amarillo that they first dug out and named them that because it was on the Antelope Creek. They were pit houses there, and then they did OU did a dig north and a little west of Elmwood last couple of years, and they were the same thing. You can see that's where I was with all the rocks. Just pan right over this way. There's a small depression in between, and then another large depression. Several depressions. Which this one is fairly deep, and the rocks have been strewn around. That's why I think they've been dug out. Back in the 70s and 80s, there was 3 or 4 guys coming out here regularly, spending a whole day with shovels and a screen, another little small depression. Batteries. Usually when the grass is shorter, you can pick out the depressions a whole lot easier because it'll be greener, especially later in the year. Which this is just mole activity here. I'm going to walk north up to the fence. There's a large hole up here that I don't understand it. It's a lot of gravel in it. Of course, the Indians may have dug it out too. This village is probably around 25-30 acres. It goes over the top of this little hill here and past the fence. It goes all the way down to the Beaver River as I'm panning. You can see a large white rock over there. That's another depression. It goes over the hill. There's 2 pretty good sized holes. These aren't stone lined. Of course, there's a stone there and another stone, large stone. I'm going to cross the fence. Now I'm back on Clawson's. This is circular in shape. Wish I did this was a lot more grown up, so I really didn't search this too well. But there's a depression over here that was stone lined. A slab there. I'm going to turn it over. But you can see all the stones. And some of the depressions, or a lot of them, have filled in, blow dirt. But these stones are still buried. Kind of walking around a perimeter. That's a small depression. I don't know if that would have been a fireplace, storage pit, or what. This right here would have been the dwelling. But all these rocks had to be brought up. Now I'll head back over towards the pickup. Get in it and I'll drive over to where hopefully I can find that little depression that I think is a storage pit or a fireplace. Off. 150 yards east of the fence, just about to go out again. These batteries are shot. I've only had this on for about 5 minutes. This is the small depression that I'm going to dig out. And it's just straight north of a larger depression. Right here, so I'll dig it. This is a larger depression. There's a couple over this way. You can see the rocks that are there. I found 2 scrapers, a full arrowhead, and a couple of broken arrowheads, a lot of bone shards. And I'm in a little depression now. There's about 5 depressions here that would have been big enough to house people. This is actually a little hill here that I'm on. And 3 or 4 pretty good sized chunks of pottery shards. Of course, it was all brought up by the moles and gophers. I've dug twice on this place, but I marked it real good, and it was never bigger than a bushel basket size hole. So I'll start digging, and it looks like my battery is not gonna last much longer. I'm on the second battery. Actually, I'm on the first battery. It's a weed whacker. I found this, which I'll dig it out.
29% improvement in firmness and
the battery, which it ought to last another 5 or 6 minutes. It's going to pan in on. There's 2 perfect arrowheads in the center. The first one is on the left is a broken tip off of a knife point. See if I can, it's got a real odd looking color, but I found 3 or 4 pieces of this before. I don't think it's going to focus. So I'll just get a little, yeah, you can see it there. Pinks, reds, black and white. Then 2 full arrowheads. That's a arrowhead's got the tip broke off, and this is the center section out of a drill. There's some pottery shards. 3, 7 of them. The rest of them are bone. Several pieces of flint. All this came out of that hole. There's 3 pieces of charcoal and some burnt bone. And then, of course, the pot. Which there's a little chip right there, and then a small chip there, and I think there was a chip on a part of a lip. But it's probably about 99% complete. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, which you kind of, that's what it'll look like when it was complete. Which I'll glue it back with some kind of glue, quick drying glue. And that's about it. This ranch, I'm probably about 300 yards northeast of the 3 holes that I've been digging in the campsite, and we're probably about 150 yards from the edge of the campsite. I told some people that live out here that work for Clawson's they were interested in hunting some arrowheads, and I told them to look for small depressions with rocks around it that looked like it had been brought in. And they came out here. Anyway, I told them to count 33 fence posts from the corner, but I forgot to tell them which direction. And I'm looking straight west, and I meant for them to count 33 fence posts going south. Instead, they counted 33 fence posts going east, and stumbled upon a little depression and started digging on it and uncovered an Indian grave. And there's a lot of bones missing. There's no shoulder blades, hardly any finger bones, feet bones, toes, or fingers. I'll zoom in. That was the skull. You can see the eye sockets, and this is the left rear of the skull, which I got that much of it glued together. It was all shattered, and there's a lot of pieces that's mixed in there. Get over on the hole. It's only about 2 foot deep. When you go to 2 foot, you hit cleaching. They didn't dig any further than 2 foot. And then they put rock on the inside. I'll back up a little bit. You can see some cleachy rock that's been brought up and kind of stacked, which I think this is another grave right here that you're looking at, where these rock are. Anyway, I thought I'd come back out and tidy up the place and bury the bones.